Welcome to the Sean Bond Show on Wolf Spirit Radio. Broadcast on the fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. PST. Sean will take you through the astral byways and highways and bring you back home ready for the next show. Here's your host, Sean Bond. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Let us enjoy tonight. I have some guests with me, and I am sitting by a fire, so that's what you'll be hearing as the hissing goes on in the background. It's a beautiful night tonight, and lots been going on of late, for me anyway, and us. So, let me know what's been going on with you, Jaypee. Have you been noticing anything interesting?
Oh yeah, big changes. Big changes here. I'll fill you. Yeah, you just need to know that there's been big changes in Wolf Spirit Radio, and it's not been altogether popular, but I believe we'll be a lot lighter for it.
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, I ended the Connecting Consciousness show for various reasons, but which I've made a public release statement for. So it's just a lot of changes, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Okay. Well, I hope everything works out well with you in that, and if you're wanting to create a new type of consciousness connecting formats with different vocabulary and different style based on your awareness and things, then I would love to help you with that. We can talk about it later. You don't have to say anything you don't want to.
I think, Sean, that the fire ceremony is a good thing. So it's a good moment, very auspicious moment to do what you're doing. So why don't you tell people what's going on at your end?
Okay. So with fire ceremonies, they're a great, powerful tool for alchemy of the soul, taking care of a large amount of the shadow self all at once, connecting to higher versions of your self or lower version of self or all kinds of different versions of yourself, traversing the streams of light of your consciousness through the emanation of plasma, of heat, of light, current that holds information, as we know in optic cables, and its connection to our light body, with receiving and transmitting back and forth as a super holographic technology computer that connects to all fires backward and forwards in time through a network of fire and creation and light. So, based on the user awareness is how much multidimensional and witchy you can get with the fire. So I can go to a little bit of that, and that'd be wonderful to start with, to help people get going with their fire shamanism techniques and abilities, and form a greater connection of seeing more into themselves. So what is your experience with fire and fire ceremonies and bonfires and fireplaces, all this kind of stuff?
Well, it's a very good way, as you say, it's a way of transforming things and moving things from one dimension to another, quite literally.
Yes. So I'll usually open the ceremony by creating a spirit cord of equity and of all the ancestors bringing together and holding space and finding remedy for every entanglement that I'm involved, especially if I'm doing it with others, which I am today, and a whole audience. So we're going to be processing a lot of the audience's resolution and shadow self as well in this fire, as they will naturally connect to the power of the voice and what we tune into. So this fire is very user-friendly now. It's got a lot of elementals in it for the version of an elemental for each one of the audience backward and forwards that's tuning in through time. So see it as like each user has their own interface, and it's like a fraction of the pie, and everyone is accessing a different aspect of the pie, and they connect in the center in a way that's shareable, but each slice is separate based on rules of their reality and things that they want to resolve themselves or not have anything bleed over, if it's like transmuting or purifying something that they don't need to share with someone else. So we open the ceremony, Ryne's adding to the fire, and we're then, the biggest thing we're doing now is grounding the fire with the earth in a pocket dimension that holds the collectives of our higher selves together, so that we're not dumping negative energy onto her, but she's learning from the process. Our higher selves are learning from the process. Everyone is learning and growing in an alchemical transmutation and recycling of all the negative energy that's being processed in the fire. We called to the seven, we're in a spiritual way of calling to the 7 directions. 4 we'll usually go into with wizards and witches and Wiccans, and the spiritual movement with the elements and the corners, cardinals, the watchers, the watchtowers, all that stuff, which is a great system, and you can add on to it with the above, the below, and within, to that general direction of dimensional space-time technology, that each direction brings a wisdom and aspect to the fire that can be tuned into visually, clairaudiently, clairvoyantly, or a feeling state for the accessor of the supercomputer. So then we got that. So then this one, the big thing with grounding is because we're resolving a whole bunch of stuff at once, as well as sending a healing that's either accepted by each individual of the audience, or rejected, or seen and scanned by the higher self, and they do some type of commerce exchange that is based on their rules. So nothing against anyone's free will. Then we're connecting. Where's the moon? It's a little not in the sky right now, but we will anchor in a user interface activation point amplification for processing of infinite information to the oracle ability for Luna, in a backward and forward transference of information exchange that we connect and amplify to the moon, and then from the moon, filtered of course. Then Earth is pretty much automatic, but we're going to be bringing up a current from the Earth, her heart, to amplify the fire's intensity, to purify and make sacred the land and the emanations around us, the ley lines and the fortress of the house. Then we're going to expand the the microcosmic orbits of this fire in shielding, holding structure, holding programs. It's like everything has a sort of orbit. Aurically, if around an individual, a fire emanation of its light and electromagnetic field, or a planet, whatever. So That's a technology you can tune into. It's similar to pendulums. I got this as a greater unlocking of dragon wisdom came to me from one of my beloved dragon guardians that has helped me so much in such a, like, I could feel it deeply to the point where there's no doubt that dragons exist, kind of thing. And she taught me the magic of orbits and how it can be used to amplify what I'm doing in the now. So, like, you can see it like the pendulum weight itself as being the orbiting body, and where your hand is, that's the controller, and the tip of the chain as being the sun that is controlling the time frequency of the rotations, which is not quite like a sphere as we know in more modernized science, as opposed to the models of the past, where it's more like a corkscrew going through space as each star is traveling through the universe, and it has like quite a few pendulums of planets following behind it in a rotation that has seasons and a tilt and an axis. So, kind of being seen like that with a pull. Then it can be added on, and it absolutely has to do with the science of the time frequency emanation of each local body existence. So as an individual and for the fire, you can take that wisdom and scan for what's your microcosmic orbit? How's it doing? Is it doing its job? And what you're holding up in man's place of responsibility for orbiting bodies. You could quite think of this like either as you could set multiple programs in these orbiting bodies to do so many different things at once. Pretty much anything a planet can do, which planets will kind of scan every individual consciousness on their planet and see what they're creating in the now and past, future, and try to create it for themselves, either after they create it or even before they create it. It depends, or simultaneously. So, kind of infinite possibilities with that. You could even see it as a little levitating shield or deflecting factor, or even like a machine gun or a library of information. Depends on especially what it's good at, what it represents. Sometimes there will be literal planets that want to be a part of your micro orbiting process, or a moon or an asteroid belt, and set up for that planet body, that moon body or asteroid aspect of your programmable energy spectrum of operating systems and technology. So usually most people that I scan won't have more than one until they're ready to hold it up. They've healed the entire shadow self of that moon or planet or whatever that's rotating, if they're wanting to be the planet of themselves or the sun of themselves, or beyond, if they're able to hold up that weight to be a galaxy of themselves, or a solar system, galaxy, universe, or multiverse of themselves. They could even be tapping into like frostings of higher dimensions and bringing in rare aspects of that type of technology, but not touching on it fully until they're like more activated in awareness, knowingness, and past life bleed over, to be able to know what the hell they're doing and hold it up well and resiliently to things that want to stop them or limit them in that spectrum. So you can also see it as a friend. It might be an aspect of you, even a version of you that's a planet or a moon that wants to bilocate as an expression and be a part of you and your expression. Or it could be your own self-created program, or it's something that you inherited. It could be even a symbolic relationship with another spirit or being, like if you have part of your tree of spirit which we usually will have these as either a direct line of incarnations or non-direct, where a version of us has decided to become a macrocosmic expression that holds experience for life to exist, like a planet or a moon, and they'll want to do commerce with other versions of them and try to seek them out in some way and become a part of their spiritual entourage. And they'll usually set that self up either right when they're born, if they're actively tracking them to see who's advantageous to work with as versions of themselves, or in the future if you do something interesting as a moving and shaker of this world, let off some type of awareness to them where they become aware of you, or you contact them first. So we're bringing in earth energy into this fire as well. And we're healing up the orbits of it so that we're working on our healing those satellites of ourself, so that we can hold up more satellites and be able to do more easily. We're stoking the fire. Then, the next thing we're doing is connecting the fire to the sun. The sun holds many, many collective consciousnesses of lots of different spirits, a large amount of higher selves of people. As soon as they immigrate to this solar system, they set up a higher self in the sun. It becomes a part of collective consciousness of different experiences, realms, management, training to be really active spiritual beings that are protectors for this solar system, and then advancing chess moves of sparks of themselves into the various planets in the solar system, going through each one of the training courses, schools, and college systems of each planet, to where, and then make, at a certain point, earning the right to create more, and then go to the next planet, and eventually come here, which is like the last school. But like, not saying that you have to stop going here. Some people will continue those expressions on these planets indefinitely while continuing to expand more versions of self elsewhere, because beings get quite bored when they're very capable and less limited, which is the interesting part of the limitation, which allows for original experiences and overcoming limitations, which is not boring at all, but can be other things besides boredom, such as suffering, which is part of the growing process, and transmuting that suffering into knowledge and wisdom of how to avoid all types of suffering, which will accumulate in lines of karma and drama on this planet of new creations all the time, either by ourselves and our choice, unknowing or knowing or ignoring something, or other things occurring that still need to be learned from so that we can become immune to them in the future and for all versions of ourselves in one of the bigger games that's entangled with pretty much everything, which is here. The fire is so much I can't do in one. You can't do it justice in one show, honestly. The wood that goes into the burning process of it has spiritual contracts as trees in management for the planet to continue their experience with you in a learning process that allows them to grow, because they don't just die when you chop them up. There's a bunch of different things that they're going into with their death process, but if they're going into the fire, some aspect of them are wanting to become trees of the fire and grow into that expression and continue on in fire elementals, working with the beings that use them sacredly, anchored into that continuing to grow collective consciousness in their spiritual entourage, as well as transversing through the network of fire backwards and forwards in time, and a whole natural and shamanic working, being connected, experiential, growing collective of fire trees that have come to me in visions. So like, as an example, sometimes the fire will change direction with the wind of where it smokes, its smoke go. Its smoke will go. If the fire chooses to bring the smoke towards your direction, it'll usually mean you need to close your eyes, and it's asking you to go into the self and use your internal vision to see what the fire wants to show you. It's asking you to pay attention to something. It will make hints of little messages based on what's coming into the fire and adding to it, because every second brings new experience and offerings and a potential for the person working with the fire, the shaman or whatever, the potential shaman, to learn from the fire a part of themselves that creates a mystical experience that continues into the future and creates new aspects and potentials in their timeline, changing their future. So, you pay attention to the fire, the sparks, the smoke again will bring you into inner vision, where you can use the light behind the veil of your eyelids, to where you can start to form an image with it, and you can use kinesiology to help get rid of doubt in if that image coming to you is real or not, or like of the multiple things coming at you all at once, the thing that the fire wanted you to pay attention to the most. So then, that would add to you, like, things like a dragon coming to you and wanting to talk to you. You could be like, oh, what is this? Is it a guide? It's like usually coming to me. Have I seen this before? Is it a new thing? Is it a version of me? You can start narrowing it down and working on the translation skill set for what it's showing you. Is it just something, a being coming to you, introducing itself? Are they offering something? Are they in motion? Is it, you can open up your other senses of clairaudience, voyance, what's coming to you in words, in voice, in feeling. The wind will sometimes come to us like in a blowing force, and that will carry information. As a wind oracle is definitely something anyone really can develop, but some people are more good at it based on the skill set they're passed on in genetics or what they've been in the past. Sometimes I've read like, while I came here, and right before she got here, a big gust of wind, knocked over the logs out of the fire, bringing our full attention to it. And I tuned into the influence behind it. It was a very powerful wind spirit that she was connected to as a version of herself that wanted to work with her as an oracle and wanted me to bring up it to her and connect that aspect of her life, which it turned out to be very true, and she knew about it quite in different ways, and I was adding that expression to her, and she works with that follows her around all the time. It's a very multidimensional wind spirit, and it communicates to her and gives messages, upgrades, and whispers to her, the ones that can hear, as she trains to be able to hear it by staying open to that information. And it gets better and easier, and she plays flute, and that goes into the wind instruments, and how you can use the magic of sound and wind and the lungs, and a woodwind instrument that can fine-tune the environment and heal people and so many things all at once. You can change the weather with your instruments and music. That's the more aspect of what was like being offered to her to the future as she worked with that version of herself more, as an example, to where she could grow and regain that power she once had to help the local bubble of reality and use your powers for good and then grow exponentially. Because if you do that and you work with the earth, you have less limiting you, less gatekeeping in the negative or the positive. Gatekeeping in the positive keeps the future from getting fucked up. And same thing with the fire. The fire right now holds trillions of fire elements for, again, every member of the audience that they can connect to as a user interface. And as you use it more, you connect to more versions of yourself. You can audit them to get rid of any fear or doubt that there might be something behind it that you don't want to connect to. Because there are many, many types of beings that use fire, positive, negative, and neutral. It's part of setting up the rules of your local bubble of reality, closing all the back doors, filtering everything that comes through, so that what comes through you don't have to be afraid of. And the ones that do try to slip through that are negative, bring your awareness to any back doors or any things you need to take care of to where your next journey with the fire is more sacred and better. And it brings that shadow self up, so that's the biggest thing that you need to take care of, so you grow much, much faster. Because that's part of what pretty much anything that brings up the shadow self in a person is trying to do as a lesson and a teacher that we shouldn't be afraid of, but like will ultimately try to put us in fear. But as this school will teach us how to master processing fear and not let it realize it's not about not having fear, because everyone has fear. There's a reason for fear. It's an indicator. It's a lack. It shows you something. But becoming brave despite adversity and not letting it affect you, and then overcoming it and hugging it and entering back into love through a progressively faster pace each time you do it, and you do it successfully. Because it's not easy to exit out of fear straight into love, especially when you're getting things taken from you in awareness to try to break your power, break your love, disconnect you from things that would empower you around you, and through your own belief start manifesting things that dig the hole deeper into fear. There's many things that we can learn to break us out of that, to enter back into the state of creating our own energy to be infinite beings, which we are, and anything that wants to bring us into fear is finite. And we can tap into that power, tap into that love, tap into that who you are, the I am of the self, to activate that power through the breath and the light in yourself, and activating that to become brighter and brighter, to transmute any negativity or fear that's held within, that is the blockage that's holding us from greater states of emotion and energy and emotion and bliss and happiness and joy. Bliss is an indicator of attraction and successful accumulation of charged energy from our environment, our self, our reserves, to where we can power our state of being, empower ourselves, and bring us to those greater states of higher consciousness, to where we have more capability at the moment-to-moment time to transmute things faster, to resolve things faster, to heal the shadow self, to love the shadow self back into light, so it becomes the ever-growing greater aspect of ourself that we learn from, we achieve more, and we've overcome for the next and the next and the next thing that comes our way, of the files on our desk of shadow self that are necessary to become aware of in growth. Sorry, this is a train. Midnight train is coming by. Let's see, is there something that the train gives us in awareness? Let me tune into that 1 second. So, train is interesting. It brings a awareness from the collective consciousness, the subconscious of humanity and the planet. So it brings a aspect of the shadow self waiting to be transmuted for all humankind, something that we all share. It's asking me to bring attention to that. Let's see what we can get out of that. As I go deeper into the self and I study and I look for the clues. You have anything you want to say while I'm tuning into that, Ryne?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great flow. What I have, I would just speak more about the fire with you, since I have at this moment all the people who will ever be listening to this bond fire, this common bond with the Holy Spirit. I'm here coming from your 1 degree of separation. I'm speaking to you, and that is the you of the universe. So speaking to all who will be in this present moment, you receiving any sort of experience, hearing any sort of sound from this radio station, in this particular moment's noise right here. Anyone in the future who will be listening in the archives are here now listening. So you're here at this fire. So I thought it was a great choice to go into the potential and actual idea of going into this interview with John about the actual fire a little bit more. When you were talking about that earlier, it was just sparking a lot of different things in a lot of different people. Because I feel also the fire is the original shaman. It's the first shaman before any of your history was recorded, before that would be the original shaman, fire. Teaching you so much. And you spoke earlier about like the fire ceremony, a sacred fire ceremony, and also about how there may be something around that you're trying to tune into to speak about that we all have a connection. And I feel like anyone can have a sacred fire ceremony. We've all been around fire. We all hear it doing its natural 0-point function of transmutation. That same fire you're able to have your own fire, and you can also have your own fire ceremony. This is for all people here going through all these crazy times, so many changes going on so much, there's so many solar flares, and so much new energy coming in. And a lot of people, their spirits hungry for some ceremony. We all want to feel the real part of life and not continue the programs that are getting their light showed on and exposed to what they are as a program, solar system, created by a solar system. And we don't need to run anymore. So we use this fire ceremony and these moments of I am at the fire, and we speak to the fire and use this transmutative force of this natural shaman. You as your friend, friend of all friends, for all beings, wanting to have a ceremony. So you spoke earlier on you like set these grounds. You were calling in different energies to come to this fire. What would, let's say there's a listener and they want to know how do I have a fire ceremony? What can I do? What would be your set and your setting? How would you go into having a fire ceremony? But like, let's say, what would you do first? You got your fire started, you got maybe your airplane log, since they burn for like 4 hours straight, you just did airplane fire logs that have that soul contracted tree that has a contract to be burned in your fire as a log in log form. So let's say we already got our fire going. I would want to engage their stone ceremony.
don't be afraid to have one. Your higher self wants you to, the earth wants you to. They're willing to protect you for your first, at least your first anyway, initiations into it, to becoming your own inner fire shaman, to light that torch within yourself. There's so many things we can build upon in wisdom in the self. Reading your story to the fire so you gain the trust of the fire. Listing your victories, bringing confidence back in, tapping into a form of energy that you see a lack in yourself. Recharging the elements of plasma, heat, light, of fire itself, and many different octaves in between and all around of that in combinations. You can connect to the fire to a volcano as an example. That's lava, earth, liquid, and plasma and fire and all that. And metals. So there's lots we can do with the fire and even transversing into other elements as we initiate that communication system relay. You can observe it in many different ways. It's quite limitless. It will set up to your own rules based on a free will interactive. You can incorporate your own beliefs, your visions, your drives, what you want to do, and seek with the fire. Go into journeys. It can inspire dreams. Find a goal and intention you want to manifest with it, and it will amplify and power what you want to create towards the future. You can even help in manifesting your own life and use that, as well as resolving and sending healings forward in time for when you really need them, making your year better, doing ceremonies with certain dates and times like the solstices and the equinoxes, times of light and times of winter or spring or all that. You can connect it to the stars, space, the celestial bodies. You can start communicating with multiple beings in a heightened state. You can connect with yourself in a greater purpose and go. I do recommend doing it by yourself, especially if you have spiritual people around you, then that can definitely add to it, especially when they can hold up their own spiritual weight of their shadow, so it doesn't limit the fire in any way, because it will, if it has to resolve too much shadow, then it will be mostly focusing its energy on that, and it won't be able to expand to the lighter aspects and the higher dimensional interactions until more of the shadow is taken care of, which is why we ground our fire a lot, like continuously through the whole ceremony, to amplify its ability to resolve everything at a faster pace. Anyway, so have confidence with it, go into it. Yeah, if you've never done it before, it'll be a little awkward and you don't know what to do. Don't be afraid of that. The more you do, the more practice that occurs, you'll start getting into it and it'll be easier and it'll start coming to you. We get downloads all the time of wisdom that just flows in and amplifies everything. And it becomes easier and easier as you observe things in nature and the winds and the things that happen around you in reality and the fire itself and how it moves and shows things. You can take pictures and you can ask it to tell you when you should take the picture, and it freeze frames an image that once you go into it more, it shows you a greater depth than a picture with 1,000 words. It can emit a language of sound like the hissing it's giving off now, and especially with other types of woods or things that you put in the fire as an aspect of fuel. Anyway, so back to the train, with that bringing in the collective of the people as an initiation point in timing, because timing is everything. And it's all, and you can relate messages to the fire if you're not fully practiced in this, to try to guess what it's trying to bring your attention to, with maybe something you were talking about right before it popped, and then like fire agrees. or, like a spark that like launches off the fire and lands in your crotch and you get, yeah, it's like, yes, that's a message. And like, so each of these has something as an influential force that's like, why did that timeline happen when it could easily have been like the rest of the time with a fire where it didn't do that? And the smoke that carries the spiritual locomotion that goes off and brings into effect something that you're creating with yourself, the land, and the collective consciousness. So what it brought to my attention was something that can be resolved in the shadow self for every individual in the now and everyone going backward and forwards in time that's listening to this as the fire agrees with its pop.
And you can use
Often my listeners will have to re-listen to everything again and again. Don't worry about that. It's totally natural. It's got a lot of layers to it. So, love. I'm going deeper into the self and finding love is wanting to create a greater frequency of emanation with each individual in the now and what they can access in the technology of love. Love is so great a power, it overcomes pretty much all. The only thing that can undermine love is your own authority and how that's stolen and used in like fine print and bullshit spiritual contracts for experience that are hijacked by insidious, negatively aware spiritual lawyer awarenesses of different beings that are trying to block us, like the Archon grids, etc., multi-dimensional apex predators that are trying to hold our species back continuously during our awakening period to limit our love capacity and all the time, and do it in a way so we don't notice it getting lessened while we sleep or in the background or our emotional state. We're not in love all the time. There is a wisdom to not being in love all the time, which is bringing the shadow self forward so that it can have its day to shine, its awareness, so that it can be alchemized. But besides that, there are some times when if you're not feeling love, and it would be great if you did, there's something holding you back, and you can at any point heal that aspect of the shadow self as the fire agrees with its sparking. And bring yourself back into a greater state of love, which is one of the highest frequency energy bandwidths of energy and motion and emotion to be in, where you have activated and are accessing all your DNA and can expand greater and greater and greater. So, in the onion and the layers of the self, in the filing system of love, and our love body, love technology, that frequency and vibration and eminence that affects you and the beings around you and how they feel, is a constant healing force and connective force and bonding force. Let's look at the wounds most people have commonly. Some of the biggest things that every single person on the planet can do and bring up in their shadow self as something to target, as an example. So, one of the biggest things is when we go back to our birth. The great forgetting of going through the birth canal, the exiting of the placenta, the void, whatever. You get a memory wipe, scramble. You forget who you are in connection to the infinite part of yourself in the mother's womb, the womb of the planet, the dream space of the planet, the infinite part of yourself. Awareness of all spiritual contracts for experience you have this life. The Archon grid is there to limit powerful spirits that are incarnating during this time to try to hold back and delay the awakening and make a predictive model for the upcoming incarnating being. It's not a good system. It's a saddle. It's been put over the natural incarnating grid of Earth eventually it's at this point diminishing, but there's so many things that want to keep replacing what we keep resolving here in the systems that have been made on other worlds that we're essentially making a big trap for in resolution. So most of the archonic grids that are being resolved are on other planets, and we have a continuing Congo line of archons that are trying to maintain their reality hold here. So most people, when they're resolving archonic entanglement in their individual self, will be dealing with a Congo line of archons, and will have to find some unpredictable strategy for dealing with that doesn't allow it to limit them, that keeps in growth state, outperforms the predictive models of what they figure that would be a good number to send after them, and keep outperforming them every time in kind of like a line graph of ups and downs, and eventual trying to disconnect from the system of domination control entirely, or at whatever level that they can in the now, which the fire will absolutely help you amplify. So that is one of the biggest things that will try to hinder our love expression in the now. So healing that shadow self of the great forgetting in many different aspects, and directing your higher self to help you do that, and you amplify it with what you can do in physical action in the now, moment to moment awareness, and the things such as resolutionary amplification forces such as the fire, kinetic force, water, all the elements, and your continued relationship with the universe around you, and going within, the universe within especially. So, that all entail, you can scale, I can, but everyone essentially can scale how their entanglement with the archons is doing at any moment to moment time, as more of your shadow self of what you're ready to deal with comes up to where you have done enough to where you're unblocking the love expression so it's amplified to its fullest. You will feel it deeply when you are doing it well. So you can target that point in time where you're being born and going through that great forgetting, and sending healing and love, and auditing all spiritual contracts that are limiting your love expansion potential, and any fine print that's taking your stolen energy and authority to do that. That is what is limiting love. The archons have almost no power to limit your love besides what they've stolen from you. Next thing is, when you're being born, every person on the planet has an expression where they're going through that hourglass of the infinite to the finite, and it's a trauma that everyone needs to heal, and it depends on especially how traumatic and how much you gotta do, and if you've lessened that with your parents and all that stuff, and how powerful you are as a spirit. There's kind of a battle going on for what you retain from the womb. So the womb, as an example, your infinite self has a greater connection to love in the womb, connection to the mother earth, the heartbeat, and the continuing rhythm and emanation of protection, love, not having fear, not having worry, and being that. Because mothers will often experience large amounts of love that comes out of nowhere. Sometimes that is created by the infinite baby within, and something that sparked that within themselves. Because they can sometimes have a great love technology, and that mother will feel that. And even going beyond the mother into the father, and them being able to feel it with their heart connection, and it's just adding to that life and changing them into the future before, during, and after birth. And that can be experienced as well, and how successfully they transferred that infinite love, awareness, and technology from that birth, that womb, through the trauma, which needs to be healed, and what is retained after the birth process. Because there will be a battle that's continuing in that moment of birth and some moments after it that diminish over time, or you're essentially disconnecting from those now moments of battling that will continue in those moments. It's kind of weird to describe, and not continue into the next moments that are coming up, or at least the type of battle of what they're battling over will change. So there's a battle over what you retain in love, and so you can start monitoring all the forces involved in that and start bringing it to peace and remedy, so that battle is resolved. It's no longer there as a continuous emanation in trauma that sometimes, depending on how much they want to limit your love, will be like a conga line of archons or something. And what they see as a reason to continue that conga line, and what they're willing to give up to be able to maintain a limiting factor over you. And that goes all into who the spirit is, how powerful they are in love technology, and what they need to suppress in those moments to keep the awakening at bay, or a greater amplification of the quickening of it. So a battle during the birth for their love, which needs to be audited at all angles, and every member needs to be brought to peace and remedy and shielding and made it so that they don't continue that battle in connection to you. The womb itself, understanding that you have an infinite version of yourself in the womb that's very advanced in its awareness of love technology that you can tap into and connect through the fire. There's a flame of love within us that needs sparking. Sometimes will go out, depending on the trauma, and can be amplified in greater to intensity and lasting as a perpetual energy generator that can be made resilient and easy to maintain through like a war of attrition of endurance. Then there's also what we're all dealing with, which is inheriting programs from our ancestors and our past lives through light body memory. So those will have an effect on our love capacity and technology. We can absolutely audit that and see what's going on, what's limiting us in the now for each individual, and I can absolutely help anyone with that. That takes a little bit more in-depth awareness for full resolution and doing it fast and easy. And it's a very good teacher, and it brings a lot of awareness to you and connections and feeling of lightness off of like pressures on the heart, boxes, heart walls, all kinds of different things that can limit love expansion by a need of attention in a different emotional state that in that moment, that's showing the shadow self of what you need to overcome to have a better life. Emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically abundant. In love and prosperity in all aspects, really. I can do all that, but tonight we're doing love. So the love, the fire fell. The log fell over. Anyway, so this fire is about a fire of love mainly that is emanating to the crowd that is amplifying as we ground more of the shadow of the crowd today.
Once you bring awareness that really lights up your shadow and bring your love, it will shine with you.
Yeah, and it becomes a working, non-fractured, not separate aspect of you, and it comes into unity. It brings its wisdom of what it learned. It brings its resiliency. It brings whatever, because there's a lot of different shadow aspects to us, and it continues, and as we heal more of ourselves, it seems like a never-ending list of things to heal, but when you realize the victories of what you've become, it's greater and greater and greater to the growth of, you're not just resolving yourself, you're resolving the universe, because you are all. And the love and the fire, you can go into visions of what the fire shows you. You can ask it to show you through the mirror of itself, reflecting the light and emanation of your shadow, what you need to resolve. And you embrace, you hug, you bring more light into that visionment until that light fractures through entire being and purifies and transmutes entirely. And then it will come into love and oneness with you after those points. But again, after you do with that, there will be another and another, and you will feel more and more. But again, you will have an experience viscerally in emotional aspects that you are in success. And it will give you that time for that victory so that you can go through that and continue in the journey and realize you are doing the correct thing, that it's not just an endless healing process. It's more to that. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy what comes to you. And understand why suffering happens. And then use it as a teacher. Use everything that comes in your life as a teacher. Use the fire as a teacher. Use the wind, the water, the earth, your feet on the ground, every access point as a communication point that can be filtered and made with your rules so that it doesn't hinder you in any way, and you're in constant growth in every aspect of your life. And love is one of those things that can amplify us in such intensity as we figure out that barely anyone is even scratching past the surface of what it can do, because there's so many distractions in this world.
Less than a minute.
People that think they're incredibly good with love, I'm here to tell you there's so much more to tap into. And when you do, it's undescribable what will be coming to you. The many layers of loves, many words for it that our English language doesn't talk about. Connection to fire. Thank you all for joining me